Welcome to Professionally Speaking Toastmasters. This video shows an example of some prepared speeches given in recent meetings.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, 2 years ago this month in Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city in the world, I went to my first Toastmasters meeting. I knew nothing about it. I'd not read about it. I just thought, let me try this out. They asked me to give an impromptu. I wasn't paying enough attention to how the timing worked. But after the Toastmasters meeting, the Toastmaster explained to me, did you hear when they announced how long each speech was? And they announced yours and they said, oh, because they wanted to vote for you, but they couldn't because you went too long. Went too long? I was horrified. Now I know, undiagnosed Aspie. I didn't realize what was going on, but that bugged me for weeks. Now I know you're saying, wait a minute. Are you kidding? You got upset because you went 2 minutes and 30 seconds in an impromptu? Come on. Wait a minute. We all have our are you kidding worries. Things that bug us. Things that spoil life. When I was driving around Reno, instead of enjoying the beautiful mountains, I was wrapped up in replaying that DVD that I didn't like. Looking back on that experience, I have gained 2 lessons. Lesson number 1, a year later, I didn't care. In fact, I can tell about it now and it's funny, but it didn't seem like it then. And whatever is bugging you now, a year from now is going to have no effect on your happiness level. So when I'm driving around Reno, instead of going back to that, oh, no, look at the mountains. Oh, look at that car going by. Hey, where's that license plate? Focus on now. Mark Twain, in one of his books, wrote, many a small thing has been made large by the right kind of advertising. Well, many a small thing has been made large because we keep replaying it in our minds. Keep replaying it. Keep replaying it. So lesson number 1 I've gained from that Reno catastrophe is, a year later, you're not going to care. And lesson number 2 is, I'm more resilient than I think. I just finished watching the NBA Finals. When they bounce that basketball, they don't look down to see if it's going to come back up. When they're bouncing the ball, they can be looking around the floor and motioning and signaling and looking to see what they aren't paying any attention to the ball because they know it's going to come back up. Same for you, same for me. When we get into problems, we always bounce back. You all sitting here this morning have probably gone through more crises, catastrophes, disasters than we want to talk about. And yet you're all here smiling, I presume happy, content, looking forward to an adventure. What are you going to make of today? Same for me. So when you've got something going around in your mind right now the way I did, you got to be kidding. Is that bothering you? Keep in mind, a year from now, it's not going to matter to you. And number 2, even if it does matter, it's a diagnosis, it's a financial whatever, even if it does matter, you're resilient, you're going to bounce back. And the more you keep in mind that you focus on what you're doing now, the more quickly you'll bounce back. Fellow Toastmasters.
One of the wonderful things about Toastmasters is that you are given immediate feedback after giving a prepared speech. Here's an example of one of those speech evaluations.
Your vocal variety is always a standout feature of your speaking. You are always very expressive. You grab our attention with the amount of energy that you bring to your speeches. I'm never bored listening to you. It's wonderful. Number 2, your content was very engaging. It was relevant to all of us, talking about focusing on the here and the now, even though we're distracted by our petty failures or our preoccupations of whatever kind, and this idea that we're all resilient. And so it was engaging, it was universal, we could all relate. You made your points very clear through repetition and through emphasis. I heard you say several times, a year from now, it won't matter. And we bounce back. We're more resilient than we think. And you repeated those and you emphasized those with your vocal engagement, with your vocal variety. So those points were made very clear. So well done. 2 things to work on. Notice right now, in fact, the angle of your camera is back like this. If you perhaps were able to adjust your camera so that you yourself form a larger part of the window, we're going to see more of you and we're going to feel your presence in a more full fashion. The second part that I feel you might improve on, your speech was so engaging. The least engaging portion I felt was the introduction itself. I wasn't sure where you were going initially. The idea about being in Reno and this and that. I finally got the idea that you were at a Toastmasters meeting. So it wasn't clear to me. I would look for perhaps techniques to engage the audience with a story, or maybe with some of that emotion that you bring, something that would grab us initially right off the bat as an introduction. Finally, one thing you knocked out of the park. This is a great message for the time we're in, and I believe the message itself was ideal. Interesting enough, the topic was to focus on the positive, and you twisted that a bit to say focus on the now. And I surely hope, for the sake of our current larger context, our nation and our world and our globe, that you are right, that in fact we are resilient and we're more resilient than we think, and we can bounce back, and that in just a few later years from now, we'll look back and none of this will matter. So I loved the message. I thought it rang very true for me, and I hope it rings true for all of us in this state we're in. Nice job. Thank you.
To learn more about our club, please check out our other videos.